Hello and welcome to We Women Want. This is our weekly show where we discuss women issues, we celebrate the winners, but we also form as a support group for those who need help. We have with us Lakshmi Puri. She's been the former Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations. She's also been a former Executive Director of the UN Women and former Indian Ambassador to Hungary. By the way, she's also married to Cabinet Minister Hardeep Puri. Actually got me to start this conversation was I had recently read an article of yours, Lakshmi, which written in the Sunday Guardian, where you spoke about the need for having a feminist foreign policy. So a bit about that and what exactly, it's an interesting concept and very fits in with our show. So what did you mean by that, and if you could explain a bit about that?
Well, thank you very much, Priya, for inviting me to this
Good to have you here.
very valuable show, We Women Want. When I used to be in UN Women, and I think for your viewers, it's important to understand that UN Women was the first global organization for promoting gender equality that was set up. It came back to India in 2018, and I was so happy to see an increase. That's a trend that is increasing. So happy to see so many women anchors, women leaders in media, including yourself. So I'm really very happy about that. But it's also equally important to have dedicated shows that spotlight women's issues and women's concerns, what they want, what they need, what their interests are, where the pain points are, where the achievement is. So I think I really, first of all, salute you.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you so
the
much.
channel for having this show. Secondly, you asked me about the feminist foreign policy.
Yeah.
You know, like most issues connected with the cause of what I call and what is normatively called gender equality and women's empowerment, everything begins with skepticism. Feminist foreign policy? When my friend, the then Swedish foreign minister, in 2014 enunciated this concept, and Sweden declared a feminist foreign policy, it was, as she herself admitted, it was met with giggles.
Derision, that's right.
First of all, explain what is feminism, who is a feminist. And there's no better definition than the one given by my hero and also a good friend, Gloria Steinem, who said that any male or female who recognizes the equality and full humanity of women and men, I want to emphasize that, women and men, is a feminist. So, reflecting that thought in anything you do, whether it's domestic policy, whether it's foreign policy, that is what is called feminist foreign policy.
So it's pro-women but not necessarily anti-men. That's
the other thing, yes. But it's not only about not anti-men, it's also about giving equal value to women's needs, interests, what they want, and also about their engagement, their voice participation and leadership in foreign policy making and conduct of that policy. And I would like to also align it with security policy, foreign and security. But UN Women was working with the then, and I was also very much involved in that, working with the Swedish government and then subsequently with other governments to develop the concept and then thereafter to get the countries to adopt it. So from then to now, we have something like 13 countries, 14 countries, who in one way or the other subscribe to a feminist foreign policy. This journey now brings us to India, an Indian a feminist, India adopting a feminist foreign policy. And my contention is that short of calling it a feminist foreign policy, India and Prime Minister Modi's India has indeed embraced that concept and demonstrated it in many ways. But of course, it is still work in progress, and there are many areas where we need to continue to work. So, there are three aspects of a feminist foreign policy. They talk about, as it was originally conceived by Sweden and also UN Women, rights, representation, and resources. So, what do we mean by rights? The idea is that your foreign policy is a reflection of your domestic policy and interests, and how you project that. So, domestically also, Prime Minister Modi has highlighted women-led development. Earlier, he talked about women-centered, and then he pioneered this concept of women-led development. So now, normatively, all that involves, all that is involved in women-led development is to be projected as part of brand India, as part of what India stands for, just as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is projected as what India stands for, as a civilizational value. So this is an important aspect of India's feminist foreign policy. And within that, it means that in your development, substantively, in your development cooperation, development assistance policy, particularly through, there is an agency now, the government of India has International Development Cooperation Agency. So that agency provides support to developing countries around the world under the ITEC program, International Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. So in that context, how do we gender mainstream our development assistance? It has a very strong, even the training that is provided is very gendered training, in the sense that there are dedicated courses on gender studies and gender awareness and so on. There is this, UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. India's advocacy and support for that issue, and also India's, India sent the first women peacekeeping contingent to Liberia, which is much celebrated, and subsequently also it has been sending. So these are very important, demonstrations of how we are promoting women's rights as India in the international arena. What are we looking at? Foreign policy institutions are key, MEA, but also there are other external looking ministries like Commerce Ministry or some of the other ministries which have an external face, interface. There is, both in terms of voice, participation and leadership of women, representation of women in this whole international relations, ecosystem. MEA, the situation is that about 30% women are at the undersecretary level. Then, of course, there are some 24 ambassadors in strategic positions around the world, and I think the first woman permanent representative of India to the United Nations in New York was appointed, Ruchira Kamboj. So, some of these glass, what I call glass, not only glass ceilings, but glass walls have been broken.
With stilettos.
But yes. So, because there are these occupational kind of, can you go to hard areas, or can you go to soft, can you do soft kind of jobs? Or, as you were saying, how do you position women which kind of negotiations you get them to engage in. But I must say that, and I used to head the division which dealt with ITech. And and there's a woman again heading the ITech division. I spoke to her. And so all these, areas, we need to make sure that MEA has been an equal opportunity employer in so many ways. They have been very adjusting of tandem couples. Personally, I can speak to that.
Correct. Both of you from the Foreign Service.
Yes, and to the extent possible, we had to be separated, of course. It is one of the best foreign services from the point of view of women. But I think leave policies are very, very good also. And promotion, I don't think there is much discrimination, or at least I'm not aware of any. But what we do need to do is to take, like you have reservation you have to have some policy, some temporary special measures to take in women at different levels to accelerate the pace of gender parity. The other aspect is...
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you because we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
But after the break, we're going to keep this conversation going, and also a bit about the women's reservations bill. We alluded to it right now, but a little bit more on how we can take this further. So stay with us after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to We Women Want. Today we are in conversation with Ambassador Lakshmi Puri. A little bit about, complete your thought, then I'm going to ask you a little more questions.
So the third R is the resources aspect.
There are 3 R's in the women advocated for.
Right. The representation,
resources,
rights, and then resources, which means both for the rights aspect and the representation aspect, you have to put in the resources. Now coming to what has been the high watermark of the India's feminist foreign policy. I think G20 was really the high watermark.
The Delhi Declaration.
The Delhi Declaration, and the very fact that India made women-led development as a priority theme of its G20 presidency, which is unprecedented. And then the outcome, it was the most substantive, longest 2.5 pages dedicated to women-led development in the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. And the concept of women-led development, India's concept of women-led development, was consecrated into the G20 lexicon and the conceptual lexicon. So, and that is that there must be full, effective, meaningful, and equal participation of women as decision makers in all spheres, including, of course, foreign policy. And then there was a veritable Bill of Rights, listed on socio-economic rights. So this is what I mean by the R of rights. And then it went on to also set targets. There is already a target on labor force participation, reducing the gap by 25%. There was an earlier target set. So there is an acceleration of, reaching that target, but there is a new target set on reducing the digital divide also.
Digital divide meaning?
The gender digital divide by, again, 25% by, by half by 2030. So, these kind of, so there is a targeted action also brought into this. Then there is a very important institutional innovation, setting up of a working group on women's empowerment. which means it will have its own work stream, and also it will gender mainstream all the other working groups of the G20. So it's really a very, and then there is a private sector empower initiative where they have launched this tech equity and care alliance. Care
Which is
work.
care, huh?
Care work is a very important concept which we in UN Women had also very much developed. We believe, and in Sustainable Development Goal 5 of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, we had put in a target on valuing, recognizing, and sharing, burden sharing, and provisioning of unpaid care and domestic work of women.
Well done. That's a good thought.
Oh, it was a big battle, but we got it through. So conceptually it's there. But as a follow-up, we have been, there is a, UN Women has helped to set up a care alliance, global care alliance. But within that, the idea is that we, this care work, even World Economic Forum has identified that care work is one of the sunrise areas of job creation. There are areas where jobs are going to die. But the future of work, in the future of work scenario, care work is going to remain. So how do we enable women to participate in the new care work labor force with dignity, with good remuneration? You can see how G20 actually brings to fruition the concepts of a feminist foreign policy. Earlier we used to talk about what do you call feminism in Hindi or in our Indian context, Narivad, but that doesn't convey the same potency as Nari Shakti.
Okay.
So I think I would very much talk about Nari Shakti, Videsh Niti.
Well said, Nari Shakti Videsh Niti. I just wanted to ask you one quick question on the women's reservations bill. It's a women's show. The Prime Minister has, and of course, announced it and passed it. But how do we take it further, and how do we ensure it is not just lip service?
That's the key. It is a breakthrough. 27 long years it took for it to be, to come to this stage when it could be passed, to provide reservation, 33% reservation for women in assembly seats and parliament seats. And within that, to provide 33%, what we call intersectionality, taking care of the concept of intersectionality. Within that, to provide 33% reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women. So now this takes care of the concept, and also India is a signatory to the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. And an Article 4 of that convention clearly enunciates this concept of temporary special measures to make sure that we actually accelerate de facto equality and parity, gender parity, over and above the de jure equality that we have guaranteed in the Constitution. So, for me, this is a leap of faith, and it should become a transformer and really be a very strong catalyst for economic, social, and political transformation in any case, but economic and social transformation and mindset change. So now what needs to be done is your question. Going forward, I think we need to use this kind of lodestar that is there, use that to create women leaders, you know, spawn women leaders right from the family context, the community context, and also, you know, from education, training. You have to have, what shall we say, a really an army of women who are out there to really take advantage of this. And there are three things that are very important, both on what I call the demand side and the supply side. On the demand side, women have to now come forward. You know, I'm always reminded of Simone de Beauvoir's very famous quote that one is not born, but rather becomes a woman.
Nice.
So here, it's about making women who have been conditioned not to be leaders, to really condition them to be leaders. And in that context, I think right from schools, from the families, they have to be told that you can be leaders, you will be leaders.
Yeah.
That then sets
Mindset.
that sets in motion a chain of thinking and aspiration. So that's one. The other is that we need networks of women. You know, men have networks. Women also must
boys
have
club.
boys club. You have to have networks of women. They have to tap into existing networks like that of self-help groups. You know, you have a huge web
Sisterhood.
something like, I don't know, millions of self-help groups in India, the highest number. So we have to make use of that, both as constituencies. You know, you have to build constituencies. So that, and then you have to have also make use of the existing leadership at the local, village and Jila Parishad levels, you know, Panchayat and Jila Parishad levels. That is your catchment area for taking the leaders to the assembly and state levels, because they are battle hardened. They have gone through this process, you know, when we had reservation for women. And I've really met many of them who are wonderful examples. And I remember one Sarpanch telling me, we had some program for training them, and one Sarpanch telling me that हम कोटा से आए, लेकिन अब हम अपने बलबूते पे आए और 2 मर्दों को हराए, क्योंकि हमने काम अच्छा किया और हमारा जो काम था हमने लोगों तक पहुंचाया कि हमारे काम से उनका फायदा हुआ है. So, you know, this kind of, so we have to tap this resource that is there. But on the other side, institutionally, the parliament, the state assembly, they have to be engendered and they have to be made gender sensitive. We have to have training programs. We have to have, also the political parties must have quotas now.
Correct.
Start having quotas, you know, and put forward women candidates and train women candidates.
Correct.
And you know, embrace women candidates.
Yeah, why
So
wait for the, you know, they keep saying you're delaying the bill. So what's stopping you from today starting the grooming process?
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be, because even then, to have the right kind of people,
We have to start now.
and it will be transformative even in terms of the quality of parliamentarians and in terms of the quality of governance and lawmaking that parliaments and state assemblies are tasked to do. So I think we have a very exciting project to you know, take forward, and it should be attended to immediately, and it should not just stop at, you know, passing this bill or wait for the census, but the work should begin already, because only then, when the next general elections happen, we will be primed
Ready for
to have not only 33%, maybe even 50% women
Watch out,
joining.
men. Yes.
With or without reservation.
That's somewhat like somewhat of a tongue twister of the women's reservation bill. But before I let you go, a little bit on a personal note, I was recently watching an interview with Hardeep Puri. He was talking about how you both met. He was being quizzed, since you were both on the foreign, I think, was it in Missouri that you met?
Yes.
And again, your story is a very interesting one because his parents objected to the marriage, or your own mother has also married out of caste, and she was a fiercely independent woman. Seems to be that you're the same also. So a bit about that story.
Well, yes.
Let's hear your version.
Okay. No, well, we met, and I would say we within about 3 months we decided. We were very young. The youngest in our batch, and we within I think 3 months we decided to get married, and of course this was not welcome news, particularly for his parents. My parents initially were a little hesitant about the cultural clash as they saw it, although both he and I were born and brought up in Delhi. He's the son of refugee parents. My parents were Maharashtrian and Saraswat from North Canada, but they had lived in Delhi since my birth. So
you were both in Delhi University together, but never met at that time.
Never met. So there was initial resistance, but we stood firm. We, at one point when they refused to agree, then we went and registered our marriage we gave notice for registration of our marriage at the Tisazari court, and then I think eventually they came around when they realized that, either we accept someone he is determined, whom he loves and is determined to marry, or we lose him. So I think they thought better to join in the celebration, and then after that it was fine. But of course, there were many, there was one question whether I should keep my maiden name or not. So many of those things, optically I chose not to do, because I said, let me not, raise a red flag unnecessarily. It doesn't make a difference. Because my daughters later asked me, why didn't you keep your maiden name? So my answer to them was, my maiden name is very long, and when I'm in foreign service, it's difficult for people to pronounce it.
But
so it's been it's now 40, going to be 40. Yeah, it's 48 years since we are married.
That's a very effective answer to the parents' objections.
Yeah, they in fact doubted the longevity of this marriage.
Is usually part of the
yes. How will you manage? You will be separate posting. Yes, we had all those challenges. Children also. Sometimes I feel children also suffered a little, when we were in separate places, all of this, and then they had to move. So all those things are there, but no regrets. On the contrary.
That's a very good note to end on. And this is also Nari Shakti in a way. It comes in various forms, sticking to your beliefs and also not going in for labels. Like, for instance, changing a name is also just a label. As you said, we may not change the name of a foreign policy, but it's walking the talk. That is what is important.
But I must tell you that my granddaughter, first of all, my daughters have kept their maiden name. Oh. And my granddaughter has assumed the name of both Puri and Gould, which is her father's name.
Well, that is very interesting. The next generation
takes it on. So her name is quite long.
On that, not a tongue twister for her. On that note, Master Puri, very good to have you on the show and to be a part of We Women Want. And we hope to have you more for more such discussions.
Would love to.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this week. Stay with us and we'll catch you again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.